In Final Fantasy XIII, you were able to upgrade weapons and accessories to increase its stats or transform them into an entirely different item altogether. While upgrading isn't necessary to complete the main story, doing so will drastically help in tougher battles. If you plan on doing all 64 Seath Stone missions, upgrading your weapons and accessories is essential. The only tutorial you get basically just tells you, go to this menu to upgrade, figure it out yourself. In this video, I will explain everything about the upgrade system and the most optimal ways to upgrade your equipment. I will start with the basics, then move on to more advanced upgrades later in the video. First, you're going to need the Omni Kit. The Omni Kit is a key item you automatically obtain after defeating the Dreadnought in Chapter 3. Once you get the Omni Kit, a new option will be available at save points. The most important thing to know about the upgrade system are components. Components are dropped by enemies, but can also be found in treasure spheres or bought in shops. Components are used to give experience to your equipment and level them up. There are over 100 different components in the game. The confusing part comes from knowing what components to use. I've seen many people just dump a random assortment of components into upgrading something and end up using everything they have only to gain a single level up. The kind of components you use and when to use them are very important. Thankfully, it's pretty straightforward. There are three types of components: organic, mechanical, and catalysts. Organic components are marked with an X icon, mechanical icons are marked with a bolt icon, and catalysts are marked with a crystal icon. All three of these serve a specific purpose. Organic components give low experience but increase the experience multiplier. Mechanical components give high experience but lower the experience multiplier. Catalysts are special, as they are used to transform a weapon or accessory to a stronger form. The type you use depends on what you are upgrading. For most of the game, we'll be buying a majority of our components. Lenore's Garage is unlocked in Chapter 4 and will be our main source of mechanical components. In Chapter 11, you can unlock R&D Depot from completing Mission 7. This shop has the best mechanical components in the game. Creature Comforts is unlocked in Chapter 5. This will be our main source for getting organic components throughout the entire game. Catalysts won't be able to be purchased until you unlock the Motherlode in Chapter 8 and R&D Depot in Chapter 11. Each organic component has a different amount of multiplier points. Each multiplier level has a required range of points needed. For the max of times 3, you will need to spend a total of 501 points. Once you have a times 3 multiplier, you're going to use mechanical components to gain a large amount of experience. But since they lower the multiplier, you need to make sure you know what you're doing before spending anything. So what components should you use? To get a times 3 multiplier, you need to spend a handful of organic components. The lowest value organic component is the Begrimed Cloth for only 4 multiplier points. These are unable to be purchased and only dropped by behemoth enemies. The highest value organic component is Perfume for 120 multiplier points. These can also not be purchased and is only dropped by Sanctum Inquisitrix and the Sacrifices. I, however, wouldn't use these. Instead, I would recommend selling them, as they sell for a total of 12,500 gil. In shops, typically the higher the price, the more multiplier points the components will give. But you can ignore 90% of the components. To get the most bang for your buck, all you need are sturdy bones. These give 14 points and only cost 80 gil. In order to get a times 3 multiplier, you need 36 sturdy bones, for a total of 2,880 gil. Using sturdy bones is the most effective way to get a max multiplier, and will be used for the entire game. Now that you have all the components you need to get a times 3 multiplier, you need mechanical components to earn experience. As you play the game, more mechanical components will become available to purchase. Here is a chart of the best components to buy per chapter. You're going to need a lot of money to buy all this, but money can be hard to come by. Unlike most games, battles don't give you money. Instead, you need to sell what is known as premium components. There are 9 premium components in the game, all with the sole purpose of selling. The most plentiful are credit chips and incentive chips. Chips are dropped by most human enemies. The best places to grind chips are in Chapter 7. In Hope's Home, human enemies will constantly spawn. Once you defeat a group of enemies, run a lap around the house and they will respawn. Only in Chapter 9, as soon as the alarm goes off, there will be a hallway filled with raiders and huntresses. They both could drop credit and incentive chips. This is the best place to grind pre-Chapter 11. Just run up and down the hallway to respawn them. 20 minutes of grinding could give you nearly 28,000 gil. Halfway through Chapter 10, you unlock the shop Moogleworks. In this shop, you can purchase the Collector's Catalog. Equipping this will increase the drop rate of items, including premium components. You can upgrade the Collector's Catalog to become the Connoisseur's Catalog, which increases the drop rate of rare items. You can equip both of these to any active party members. You cannot, however, stack multiple of them, and can only equip one of each. Equipping multiple of the same item will not increase its effectiveness. Now that you have both types of components, it's important to know that you can easily spend more experience than needed. For example, to get a maxed out power wristband, it will need a total of 4,720 experience. I recommend looking up how much experience something needs to max out so you don't waste components. I will leave a chart in the description. Now, let's actually get to upgrading. Here in Chapter 9, I'm going to buy 36 sturdy bones and as many turbo jets as I need. In this case, I only need 4. Now, let's go to the upgrades menu. Here you will see upgrade and dismantle. We will ignore dismantle for now. In the upgrades menu, you will see weapons and accessories. In these sections, you will see every weapon and accessory you have. Things that are currently equipped will be marked with a check mark on both the item name and the character's icon. Since we used the power wristband as an example, let's upgrade that. As you can see, it's only level 1. If I try to use a component, you can see the experience is minimal, especially if it's organic. The turbojet though gives 381 experience, meaning you will need 13 turbojets, which will cost 10,920 gil. Instead, let's use our 36 sturdy bones. This will give us a ×3 multiplier. Now, turbojets will give us 1,143 experience. Now we only need 4 turbojets to max out the power wristband. That means we only spend 3,360 gil. Once a piece of equipment is maxed out, it will be marked with a star. The max level for a power wristband is level 6. Now that it's maxed out, that means it's the best it could possibly be, right? Well, if you remember earlier in the video, I mentioned the third type of component, catalysts. When something is maxed out, you are able to transform it to a higher tier. As you can see, since the power wristband is maxed out, every component is grayed out, unable to be used. Except for one, the Cobbletite. Each piece of equipment requires a specific catalyst to transform. The power wristband can only be transformed with a Cobbletite. Once we use it, the power wristband transforms into the Brawler's wristband. Now, you have a tier 2 accessory, which can be further upgraded. Higher tier equipment have higher stats, but also require much more experience to max out. The power wristband has a total of 5 tiers, each having higher and higher stats. It's important to know that some accessories won't increase in power when upgraded. The Doctor's Coat, for example, has 2 levels, but will never increase its healing capabilities even when it's maxed out. That's pretty much all you need to know about upgrading accessories. It's a very linear process. Upgrading just makes it stronger. Weapons, however, are a completely different can of worms and the much more complex of the two. Weapons are upgraded the exact same way, using sturdy bones to get max multiplier and high experience components. Unlike other Final Fantasy games, every single weapon can be upgraded into the respective character's ultimate weapon. The very important thing to note is whatever weapon you use as the base will drastically affect the ultimate weapon's stats and ability. Lightning's default Blaze Fire Saber, for example, if you use this weapon and upgrade it to tier 3 to an ultimate weapon, called Omega Weapon, it will have max stats of 620 in both strength and magic, but won't have an ability. However, if you use something like the Axis Blade, which is widely accepted as a best based weapon, the max stats for Omega Weapon will be 315 for both strength and magic, with the ability ATB Charge 2, which will recharge your ATB gauge each time you attack an enemy. Each character has 8 tier 1 weapons, all giving different stats and abilities to the ultimate weapon. So, what weapon should you choose? Well, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer, and it's entirely up to preference, but I do have some recommendations. For Lightning, I recommend the Axis Blade for 315 strength and magic with the ability ATB Charge 2. This ability will charge the ATB gauge each time you attack an enemy. Lionheart, with a whopping 500 strength and magic, and the ability Quick Stagger. Quick Stagger will allow you to stagger enemies once they reach 90% of the stagger gauge. For Saz, there's the Spigot Defenders for 713 strength and 911 magic, with the ability Augmented Maintenance 2. This will increase the duration of offensive buffs. Antares Deluxes with 610 strength and 616 magic, with the ability Chain Bonus 2, which will increase the speed at which you stagger an enemy. Procyon for 620 strength and 414 magic, with the ability Stagger Maintenance 2. This will increase the time at which an enemy is staggered. For Snow, I recommend the Paladin for 510 strength and magic, with the ability Improved Guard. This will improve the effectiveness of the abilities Steel Guard and Meta Guard. Umbra for 410 strength and 620 magic, with the ability Improved Ward 2. This will increase the effectiveness of ward abilities, such as Fringe Ward and Death Ward. For Hope, I recommend Hawkeye for 202 strength and an insane 917 magic. This weapon, however, does not have an ability. There's also Vidofnir for 305 strength and 713 magic, with the ability Defense Maintenance 2. This will increase the duration of defensive buffs. For Vanille, there's the Healer's Staff for 424 strength and magic, with the ability Improved Cure 2. This will drastically increase the effectiveness of her healing spells. There's also the Belladonna Wand for 403 strength and 807 magic, with the ability Improved Debuffing 2, which will greatly increase the success rate of debuff abilities. For Fang, there's Dragoon's Lance for an insane 962 strength, but 0 magic, with the ability Fettered Magic. This ability simply makes it so the weapon has 0 magic. There's also Taming Pole for 921 in both strength and magic, with ability Stagger Lock. This ability makes it impossible for that character to stagger enemies. However, due to Fang being 90% commando, these last two abilities don't really have a downside. Additionally, every ultimate weapon gives the character an additional ATB gauge, for a total of 6. Finally, the Dismantle option. This is very basic. Dismantling a piece of equipment will give you components in exchange. A star rank will give more and even rare components, especially if it's a higher tier. That's everything you need to know about upgrading. I hope you found this video helpful. If you want more Final Fantasy XIII content, why not subscribe? I also stream the game over on Twitch. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Bye bye.